Alright, so what are your initial thoughts when you see animals like this? Typically, most people would be, you'd think it's really cute, uh, or you would be, like, interested in them, or you just might really like them, or maybe you're like, otters are terrifying because they have really sharp teeth and claws, and yeah, uh, well, whatever you're thinking, today I'm going to be talking to you about wetland ecosystems, which are where these animals come from, and hopefully by the end of this, you will just be more informed and be able to appreciate these ecosystems a little bit more. So most people here understand, I think, the benefits of wetland ecosystems, but maybe you could learn a little bit more about the specific details of why they're so important. So hopefully by the end of this, like I said before, you'll be able to appreciate these wetland ecosystems a little bit more. So, I personally live I live by the Chippewa River in a coniferous swamp, so there are lots of cedar trees and lots of water flowing everywhere, like streams and stuff. And something that I really enjoy doing is just going out into these areas and just exploring and learning about the animals. That's just something that I've done for a very long time. So the main ideas that I'll be talking about are how these ecosystems are formed and what they are, along with why they're so important and beneficial for the environment, and some of the really cool animals that you'd be able to find if you go out in them. So, what are wetlands and how are they formed? Well, wetlands are basically areas where water and land converge. You could have water that's like above the soil, or the soil could be just saturated with water, and that can be considered wetlands. The National Park Service website describes some formations like the flooding of coastal lowlands and the flooding of rivers or river floodplains. So basically, what that is water elevations will rise, or like rising tides and stuff. Uh, Coastal areas like the oceans, or you could have the Great Lakes. Water rises up and flows down into areas of low elevation, and those areas over time will become wetlands. And let's see, the Michigan Municipal Wetland Alliance website describes four main types of wetlands. There are swamps, marshes, bogs, and fens, and I'm going to talk to you about the characteristics of each. So, swamps typically have a lot more like woody, like shrubs and stuff that are water resistant. Marshes typically have lots of grass, and those are herbaceous plants, and high levels of water. Bogs typically have very acidic water and peat, which is basically decaying plant matter. And fens are very similar to bogs, with that they have they have less acidic water levels and lots of peat formation. So bogs and fens are classified as mires. And like I said before, that can be found at the Michigan Municipal Wetland Alliance website. So, what are the benefits of wetlands? Why are they so important? Well, we know that wetlands provide habitats for lots of animals, but also, another thing to keep in mind is that they provide water filtration and flood protection, which is very important. So, with flood protection, basically, just based on the structure of them, they hold lots of water. They're basically like sponges for nature. They hold tons of water, and the water can't get out very easily, which is extremely important because if you have lots of precipitation or like rain, it basically makes it so water can't escape very easily. And if the water escapes very easily, then it'll get out, like in this picture here, and flood everywhere, which is very harmful for like residential areas. With water filtration, it's also nutrient filtration as well. Basically, what happens is water eventually will flow into rivers, lakes, and oceans, and that water sometimes will have like pesticides or agricultural runoff, and that in wetlands will get filtered out and actually be broken down by microorganisms and bacteria and absorbed by plants, which is very beneficial because once it goes into rivers and lakes and oceans, it's purified, which is extremely important for the environment. Also, according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, wetlands are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth, similar to coral reefs and rainforests, which is pretty interesting because usually you'd think of those and you'd think about how those are the most productive, but there are similarities with those and wetlands. So when you think of like swamps and marshes and stuff like that, typically you wouldn't think of them being as similar to coral reefs and rainforests. So earlier, I showed you pictures of otters, well, the otter and the great blue heron, but what other things could you find? Well, right here we've got the eastern box turtle, as well as the carnivorous English sundew plant. These are some of Michigan's rarest creatures that you can find out in these wetland ecosystems. And you can find that at the Department of Environmental Quality. And another important thing to note is that wetlands hold approximately a third of the endangered species in the U.S. according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And according to the National Summary on Wetland Resources, they have a third of the birds in the U.S. that depend on them. So they're extremely important for lots of species, like I said before, with habitats, and they provide lots of habitats, and that's why conservation efforts have been made by efforts like the Fish and Wildlife Services, and draining these wetlands is a very harmful thing because so many animals rely on them so much. So, in conclusion, hopefully from learning a little bit more about wetlands, you can appreciate them even more next time you see one. So basically, you've learned what wetlands are and how they're formed, why they're so beneficial for the environment and human health, along with some of the pretty cool plants and animals that you can find in them. So, I started off showing you cute pictures of otters and the cool animals you can find, but just remember, otters have very sharp teeth, and they will bite and scratch you if you get close to them. So if you're going to go out in these ecosystems, just remember to stay cautious.